Hello and welcome to the third of this instalment of videos on making comics with Daz Studio. So this video I will be going into rendering and lighting only loosely, just to give you a basic overview of it. As I may have mentioned before, Daz Studio has two render engines, 3D Light and iray. So if we go over to render settings, which I already have up, it may not be in this place on your version of Daz Studio. If you can't find it on either side, go up to Window, Panes, Tabs and select it in here, Render Settings. It will come up on screen and you can just dock it to one of these if you choose. Anyway, I've got 3D Light selected. The reason I have it selected now before I've loaded anything into the scene is the materials or surfaces will show up differently depending on whether you have iray or 3D Light selected. To keep this simple, I'm going to use primitives. So these are simple shapes which you can load into, add textures to, colour or what have you. This is the nearest Daz really has to modelling functions. So I'm going to start off with a plane, add that in. I've not messed the settings, so it's just come up with the basic size. I'm just enlarging that. Again, it's just got dull grey colour. And as I'm in 3D Light, sorry, excuse the sound of my chair creaking. It just comes up. So we've got lighting model, we have plastic metallic skin, glossy plastic matte and glossy metallic. They're all fairly self-explanatory. I'm going to leave them on plastic for now. I will change the colour though. Let's make this green. Just select all the colours there. And if I do a quick render now, in 3D Light you'll see it's just black because we have no lights in the scene. To add a light, you can go to create and put new distant light, new spotlight, new point light or linear point light. You also have tabs up here, again depending on the mode depending on the layout of your Daz Studio, again you can change that, and you go up to window, style, select a style, you can viewports tabs, you can change it all, have a little play. Mine is how I like it. Say if I go to style, you can select, and so you've got help here, dark side, highway or main street. Okay, mine is dark side, so I'm not going to change that. Anyway, for attention, let's add in another primitive. Let's add in a cylinder. Again, I'm changing the settings. I will move it around as before using the translate scale tabs functions on the tool. So let's put that in there. I'm also going to show you instancing. So I've got this selected, the cylinder. Actually I'm going to make it dark blue, and I've got it selected. I'm going to go to create. I'm going to create new node instance, but I want more than one, so I'm going to instances. Let's put that to 5, and it creates 5 copies of it. It always puts them slightly behind to the side, so I'm going to move them around. Depending on the number you have, it does vary how it lays out slightly, I believe. Okay, I still have no light in the scene, but I have these in here, which I'll show you why I'm picking that. Now I'm going to create. I'm going to put new distant light in. New distance light, and go here, so it's showing off my scene tree. I'm going to go to parameters, and then see the colour is white, so it's producing a white light. The intensity is how bright it is. The scale I won't play with at the moment, but that's on a scale of 1. The shadow type I have as none, and we have shadow intensity, softness and bias. But I'm going to do a quick render now just as is. Still doesn't look very interesting, so I'm going to change the view to the distant light, so I'm seeing it from the light. As you see, as I pan around, or orbit around, whatever you want to call it, it always keeps at a fixed distance. I can't zoom it in or anything, it's keeping it at a distance, which is fine. It's basically to represent the sun, for example. Again, where I've moved it to, it won't, you see the sort of slight bit of light hitting there, but there's no shadows, it's all just a flat thing. That's because I haven't put a shadow type on. So I'm going to ray traced and render, and all of a sudden now I have shadows. Again, they're very hard shadows because I haven't changed the shadow intensity, softness or bias. So I'm going to put the shadow intensity down, do a quick render. Again, they're not as strong, slightly more realistic. And I'm going to softness and do a render. Oh. And here now you see that the shadows are perhaps a bit more realistic, not quite so intense. And I put the bias on and render. And again, I'm not seeing a huge difference there. But these are the main settings you'll want to play with while changing your shadows. You may have noticed when I select shadow type, there's also deep shadow map. There are benefits to using shadow map versus ray tracing. Again, you can see I've not got quite as realistic looking shadows, or maybe much they're more realistic depending on what you're looking for. But there is a slight difference in how they look. I won't go into the exact differences into it right now, but you'll notice the difference, especially if you have a figure in a scene with hair on it or lots of grasses, things that use transparency maps. To explain, a transparency map is where there's might be a solid mesh, has a layer of texture on it which makes certain parts of it see-through, and then it's coding there. So with ray tracing, it will take longer rendering those, but I'd say it arguably gives a better render. But I'll leave that on shadow map for the moment while I show you other lights. So let's go create new spotlight. Actually, I'm going to get rid of the distant light. Yeah, I've got a spotlight in the scene. I'm going to go to look through it so I can move it and place it. So you can see I've got much more maneuverability with it. As you can imagine, it's like a spotlight you might have on from a helicopter or on a stage show. I'm going to change the colour of it to blue and go to perspective view. So select that again. Again, I haven't got the shadows set. I'm going to go to deep shadow map and do a render. The deep shadow maps tend to take a little bit longer before they start rendering and showing the render on the screen, but then it comes down much more quickly. Now, as you can see, it's covering a smaller area, and we've got intense shadows because I didn't do anything with the shadow settings. If I go to the light, I can also change the beam distribution and the decay and the spread angle. So if I do the spread angle, for example, you can see it's covering a wider angle. And go to render. Okay, so you can see it's covering a wider area, but the beams are still there. If I go to ray trace and go render, it won't be much different. I'd say arguably not really different at all. Okay, so that's the spotlight shown, and then we also have this point light and linear point light. These are very similar. I can load in a linear point light because it gives you more controls. Again, this is something to have, like imagine if you had a candle in your scene, you might have this around the flame to represent the light coming from the flame. And so the normal point light has the same settings, except it doesn't have the fall off start and fall off end. But this one doesn't have like the shadow intensity, doesn't have the shadow softness, because the softness is covered by the fall off start, fall off end. The fall off start, you can see the inner mesh frame there. That is where the full intensity of the light goes up to. Then the light will decay between the fall off start and the fall off end. So if I render as it is now, actually you won't see anything now. If I render, move that down, so we can see that the fall off start is touching the ground, so we have full light here, I should have softer light around here. So if I go to render, yeah, you can see the full light there, and it's softer as it goes out. Okay, it creates a slightly more realistic effect. Now if I make the fall off start larger, so it starts interfering with the pillars, and to make the fall off end much larger, and then render. Again, you can see the effect for intense on air, but gradually the light is decaying or falling off. Okay, that's the lights in 3D Light. I said the other point light is very similar to the other one I've just showed you, just with a few less options. So if I was to go into render settings and select NVIDIA iray, if we look at my lights, it's changed. I don't have as much settings now. If I delete that and create a linear point light, see now I have some more information, some more options. So this is why I said select your render engine, decide and select your render engine before you start playing with the lights and building things, because if you change partway through you might have to recreate your lights, which it's okay if you've got one single light in like I have here, but if you created an advanced light setup it can be a bit of a pain. So it largely works the same, but again if I show you the surfaces, they're still very much the same as they were before. Now if I delete these primitives and then create new ones, let's create the plane first, make it larger. Now if I go to the surfaces we have different settings because the iray materials are slightly different, and the base colour will still work very much the same. Let's make it a lighter green this time, and let's see, let's add in a couple more things. Let's add in some cones, a cone this time, but like before I'm going to create instances. So create node instances. I'm going to add to do 10 this time. As you can see it's done more than I had on the other time. They're laid out in rows. So each of these, actually the difference between an instance and loading another one is it's using the same information from the first one. So as far as the memory is concerned, it's effectively loaded in one item. So if you had a more complex model, maybe one that had quite complex geometry, textures and things, loading in instances would allow you to have more copies of it than if you loaded it in multiple times, and it's better on the RAM. So if you have a scene with lots of trees, you want to maybe make a few trees or load in a few trees and copy each one multiple times, rotating them, changing the scale slightly to create the look of a forest. Sort of what I've got here. Now, so the other thing I need to check, so I'm on NVIDIA iray, I need to go to environment and see what I've got. So at the moment I've got scene only selected. So this means it will only load in the lights or use the lights that are within the scene. So let's just do, well, I don't need to do a render on this one. I can go to the iray and show you the light there. So if I make sure I've got the linear point light selected, go to parameters. Now we've got intensity. If I change that, it does makes a bit of a difference, but it's not huge, is it? Now down here with the temperature, so a cooler light is more red, and as it gets lighter or higher temperature it becomes a brighter light, a more white colour. Just think about how stars are red or white or yellow and things. It's similar theory to that. Oh, it's based on reality. So now I've gone to the luminous flux, and this is what affects the brightness the most, or the spread of the light. So you can see how it's working. Now I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to create a distant light. Again, it works much the same as it did in 3D Light. Again, instead of you still have the intensity, but the differences are again quite subtle, and it's really the in the temperature, and the lumen flux is where you'll make more of the changes to the amount you have of the light. And, okay, so I'm going to delete the distant light. Now the spotlight is the one that has maybe a bit more of a difference. So again, I'll go to view from the spotlight, and I'll place it in, go to perspective view. So once again, I don't have a thing, so I'm going to put a bit more of a spread angle on it. It's not very bright, so I'm going to increase the lumen. Now you'll notice that the shadows are very hard, and we haven't got a shadow softness or anything, but we do have light geometry. Now the point light would be almost like a pinprick. A rectangle, imagine like a large rectangle that's emitting the light. Again, we can change, watch now as I change the settings, the height and the width. You can see the shadows becoming a bit softer. The larger I go, the softer they become. And the similar works for if I select disc, sphere, or cylinder. Again, there are subtle differences, but there's nothing too drastic in that. Again, like the others, I can change temperature to affect it. Now the other part of the lighting, so I'm going to delete the spotlight, and this is where iray really separates from. I've got, say, in the environment mode, so I've got had dome only, scene only, so that's the lights I put into the scene. You have dome and scene, and that automatically puts in almost like a sky dome, which uses image-based lighting to create the lighting from scene. So we've got this environment map that produces the light. You can change the intensity of it, you can rotate it. Where's the dome rotation? Here we are. So as I rotate it, you can see the shadows move. See that sun there? And you can see how that's producing the main lights and shadows. It's very blurry and low detailed image based in the background. You can get other ones which are more detailed and create different lighting effects. But anyway, that's enough of that for now. Again, if this is some dome and scene, I could add extra lights. Now if I lower the intensity, and then create a spotlight, like before, I'll move it, and again it's not making a huge difference at the moment, but again if I change the lumen, we'll start seeing the effect. So you can imagine, you can do quite a bit with that. You might have an evening sky, a building, and some street lamps or something. Now the other modes to show you, so I can go to dome only, and it will just switch off the lights, or I can go to sun and sky only. I don't really need the light here. Now the sun and sky, you can see the dome, the background has changed. Now you can turn that dome off, or you can put draw dome off. And again, we've just got a plain background, nothing in there. For this, I'll leave it on. Now this works much the same as the other dome. However, here we have the longitude, latitude, time of day, and we change the time of day, and it will calculate what the lighting would be at that time of day on the date, the time, the longitude, latitude that you've got set, and the time zone offset that you might put in there. Again, you can change the setting of the sun as well. Lots of options there. I won't go into all of them now. Again, it's something I just recommend playing with and experimenting to see what works. gives you the brief overview of how the lighting works. And obviously I've shown you the finished renders in 3D Light, but I've only shown you like the real-time rendering in iray. So let's turn detect shaded mode. Let's just do an iray render. Now I have a desktop with an i7 processor. I have 32 gig of RAM and a pretty powerful NVIDIA graphics card. So rendering, especially with a simple scene like this, is momentary. However, if I had a more complex one with more detailed reflective surfaces, busy things on, rendering can take a while. And if you have a system that doesn't have a decent NVIDIA graphics card, that doesn't support the graphics card boosting or using for rendering, it can be a very, very slow process rendering with iray. And not that you can't get slow renders with 3D Light, depends on the scene, the amount in it, the amount of transparency, but yeah, let's give you an example. So let's go to new. Now, here we go, right. So I have this scene called My Little Lake. So we've got a 3D Light version and an iray. So I'm in iray at the moment, so I can load in the iray version. And it has an environment in there as well. So this is loaded in a render size, if you like. To change that, so you go to render settings, general, and you've got the dimension presets and things. I'm going to leave this on there for the creators put there as the size. There's the 16:9 aspect ratio. But as you can see in here, we've got a simple scene. So let's give that a render. So let's see how long this takes. As I understand it, iray will keep rendering and do iterations, making the image sharper and sharper, making it getting details in ad infinitum. And in a sense, there are a couple of settings on iray which decide when it stops, and it's either the amount of passes it makes if it reaches a certain amount, or if it reaches a quality level, and eventually it'll finish. So this, it's already looking pretty good. And let's see if what percentage we reach. We're on 5%, and that's at 1 minute 26 seconds. Okay, now we're 47% done at 2 minutes 21 seconds. Okay, so where are we at now? 99%, 7 minutes, so under 8 minutes to do the render. Okay, there. And stop over there, it's nearly done, it's close enough. Won't improve much in the last few seconds or whatever it would have been. So here's File New, and go to Content Library. Actually, render settings first, you need to go to 3D Light. In Content Library, I'm going to load in the My Little Lake and the environment. Just a similar position as last time. So a little bit more water this time. Okay, so let's go to render. So it's optimising the images to sharpen them. You'll often see that certainly the first time you do a render. If you do it a second time without adding anything in new, it will, or it won't need to do that. And again, this is rendering very quickly. It's slowing slightly around here, and this is because of transparency maps. Okay, right, so what I'm going to quickly do before I do anything else is I'm going to go into parameters, environment. That's, the environment hasn't added any lights. So go to lights here. So now if I render this time, it will take much longer to render, I believe. Yeah. Okay, that's complete, and that took, well, it doesn't say it's finished now. Yeah, I'd say it's less time than the iray render overall. So yeah, got quite different looking renders there. Again, if I load in the preset lights, it'd probably be closer to how it looks. This is, there's obviously no direct light hitting any areas on this render. But as you can see from the difference of the iray render, the flat 3D light render looks very dull, has no life in it at all, and we have the 3D light render using the preset of the sun, which in some ways looks the best, but let's go that one. I think that's mostly because of the lighting that's been set there. If I change this one, actually if I go to render settings, go to video iray, actually just load the scene in new again, and this time do the iray version. Oh, is it there? I'll do it twice. Okay, and then go to lights and iray sun. Again, we're getting a better look. So I'm going to go do a render this way. So I'll show you it in the real time render. It's not quite as sharp, but again, you can see it's popping more than it was in the initial render I did just with the sun sky, because it has positions to optimise it, the shadows hitting nicely, and overall it's closer. Between the two. Now, what I'm also going to do is use this texture shade mode. So you may find helpful is this scene. We obviously have a number of lights and props in it, but let's have a look at the props and the materials. So let's see. So it's just a solid margin. If I go to surfaces, we can see the individual items and their textures. Now, essentially we have tree trunk material, which is just a repeating pattern that's laid over all of the branches and everything. And for leaves, so the leaves are using a transparency map. So if I go to wire shaded, see the leaves are flat squares or rectangles, and that shows it better. Some foliage is just rectangular curved shapes, and it's using transparency maps to make it look like a plant. I'm actually surprised that the plants here are actually modelled, but I expected those to be rectangles and curved flat shapes with that use transparency, but not the case here. So some Damon scene. If I go to sun sky only, like it was before, you can see the lighting squad, it's not quite so controlled, but maybe you can argue as to whether what's more realistic or which pops more. If I change the time of day, I'm going to get very different effects. And you can see how much lighting really affects how good a scene looks. I'll go back to that first iray render. It wasn't very exciting because of the light settings, the lighting. I mean, it still was, quite a clean render, but that, because the lighting is much more interesting to look at. And so never underestimate the power of lighting in your scenes. So anyway, that covers it for lighting and rendering for now. It is something we'll come back to probably time and time again because it's such a key part of it for what really affects your final images. However, in the next video, I'm going to start, or the next few videos, I'm going to go through making a comic page from thumbnailing to a finished page. So that's, I'll do the thumbnailing, it's very simple in Photoshop, and we'll go through to make a complete comic page. Alright, I'll see you then.